Hey everybody, today we're going to do a new to old photo conversion. And our goal for the photo today is to take a newer looking photograph, and I'm going to show you some techniques that actually allow us to make it look old. So let's get started. Now I'm going to try to start this from the same point you guys are. We're going to do some research and we're going to grab some images on the internet. And the first thing I want to do is really look at old photos. So I'm going to type old damaged photograph into Google here, and I'm going to look at what some of my results are. And we'll notice that the majority of the old photographs have cracks in them, creases, bends, dents, all sorts of things, subtle color shifting, not very sharp, and that's our goal for this final photo. Now, we also want to pay attention to them and understand that they don't look really overly photoshopped. And overly photoshopped files are essentially not what we're looking for. We're looking for something more natural. So again, you guys can search by any size, color, type here. I'm going to go and search large, and we can see some of these photographs that maybe we can use as inspiration. Also, you can search old damaged photographs like we were on, old damaged photos, and you'll get variants of all of these. So kind of some cool stuff. All right, maybe picture even. Let's look at that. Yeah, a couple extra ones in here. Alrighty, so some of the things that I noticed in here are grunge and tear. So the first thing that I want to look for in Google is I'm going to go back and I'm going to search for a torn paper brush. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and go to this first link here and see what I have. And I don't really follow tutorials on this. It's not like I'm going to use a very specific kind of brush. And there's a couple in here I look at the suggestions that I actually like too. I'm going to start with this torn paper brush and I'm going to download the file. It comes in as a zip file, which is basically a way of compressing files in the computer. And I'm going to go and navigate to my folder here, and we're going to put that on our desktop and unzip it. There we go. All right, and there are my torn paper brushes. So that's one thing I can use. I'm going to go down here to the bottom and look at some of these interesting ones. And this is a dirty edge brush. Now you can see right from the start it says you have to pay for this. So I'm not going to use this because I feel like in Photoshop we can really make anything we really need. So I'm going to say dirty edge brush. And then you can see here we have some more kind of areas we can look for. So here's some grunge brushes like tape, some coffee stains, things like that that could be really interesting. Grunge brushes again. And I'm going to kind of just go down and see what will work. Now sometimes you'll notice these won't work. So again, here's cracks. And if I look at these cracks, they tend to look more like the cracks that you would have on a sidewalk. Now, I'm going to go ahead and download these just for the heck of it and get those working and see if maybe they can work later on. Here we have grunge corners, which could be kind of interesting when we get working in Photoshop. But again, you guys never want to really purchase these brushes. These are, absolutely fine to kind of deal with on your own and create on your own. So I'm going to go through again, and you'll see there are many, many brushes out here that you can find and utilize to your advantage. So let's go through a little bit further. And I don't want the real heavy brushes. Those are never, really that amazing to me. I usually like the more subtle things. Again, these corner brushes are really nice. Let me grab some of those as well. All right, so while those are all downloading, now we have to think about what these photos had in common. And some of the things they have in common were the borders, the photo borders. So I'm going to go back to Google and type old photo border. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and look and see if I can't find one. Now, the first one that really strikes me is this one here. It has a watermark in it, and I'm going to attempt to take that out. So I'm going to just go with this one. And I look, and it's a relatively big size. So I'll right click, and I'm going to save that image as, we'll call it border. And we're getting your pieces together of what we need. Also, I could look up vintage photo borders, which can give me some really nice results. Again, guys, it depends on the photo you want to use. Some of these are great. Some of these, will work depending on the photograph that you use. All right, so I have the old photo border here, and then I'm going to go to, let's find a landscape, maybe a farmland. All right, I need to find a photo to actually convert, and I'm going to start with, I like this one right here. Yeah, let's go with this one, 800 by 600. Let's see if it opens up. Save the image as, and I'll call it farm new. Alright, something that I can make look kind of classical and old. Alright, I'm going to keep Google up because I'm going to really utilize these, and I want to also grab some of these brushes that I had downloaded. Again, I had that craft brush in there. There we go. And throw all the extra stuff away and clear my list, kind of do some housekeeping here. Alright, so now I'm ready to go. Now let's see if I actually saved my pictures right here. Sure looks like it. Looks like I saved the thumbnails, so I'm going to really quickly go back and grab the original images on these. So let's try this again. Save image as. Let's try that. And let's see what we get. Yeah, that's a lot better, you can see. And I'm going to go back into my photo border. There it is. We'll view original image. Save image as. And we'll save that there as well. Alright, now we have our normal size images. Alright, so we have our things we need, and we'll probably add to these more, but I'm going to just show you a little bit of what we're going to use. So let's open up Photoshop, and the first thing I want to do is I'm going to open up a new document, but I'm actually going to build it within my pictures. So I'm going to drag and drop these pictures in. I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to arrange my workspaces right next to each other. Now, I have some cleanup I need to do. First thing I need to realize is what picture do I want to put where? Well, I want to see which picture is the highest quality, and I always want to work in the highest quality. So this one is 1200 by 858, and this photo is going to be 800 by 600. So this is my bigger photo. So what I'm going to do is grab my Move tool and simply drag one image into the other. And you can see it fits rather well. And when I'm done, I usually close it down, and I can kind of begin some work here. Alright, so I'm going to open up my Layers panel, and for you guys to see them better, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to say Large Thumbnails. Now this will help you see exactly what I'm painting. I'm also going to clip my thumbnail to the layer, so you only see what's the layer and you don't see anything else. Alright, so now I have some issues with this border. Now, one of the main things I'm going to do in the new to old is I wanted to convert everything to CMYK, at least for purposes for this project. So I'm not going to merge these, but I'm going to convert them, and I'm going to name some files here. We name that border, and we're going to name this backup farm. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and make a folder, and I'm going to call this backup, and I'm going to drag one into the other, and I'm going to just keep a backup of all of my different images. Now, the reason I do this is just in case I screw up, and trust me guys, you'll probably see me screw up on these videos. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy both of them, make my copies. I'm going to go ahead and lock and close these layers here, and I don't really need them. I can even go ahead and, if I wanted to, right click and put a red stop sign on them so I know not to mess with them. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink my border a little bit and try to attempt to maybe kind of match up this photo border with this picture. And it's not going to be perfect, but that is okay because we will change that later. Alright, So now when I have it matched up, and I'm a little off on this side, I can see the black coming out of it. There we go. Now that I have it set up, I want to get rid of this background. Now my first inclination is, oh, I can just magic wand tool and hit delete. Well, I can do that, but I'm trying to work non-destructively. So I can magic wand tool it, but I'm going to go down to my layer mask down here and hit that. You'll see it needs to be inverted, so I'll hit Command I, and that's the same thing as going to Image Adjustments, Invert. Alright, now that I have that going, I can kind of turn off this image and deal with this background. Now, the easiest way to kind of deal with this, personally I think, is for me to select it, and I'm going to fill it with black. So if I hit Option Delete, it will kind of hide it for me. So I filled it with black. And now, you can see there's really not much underneath there. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this Photo Back. And I'm going to fill it with that color. So I'll get my eyedropper tool, which is I on my keyboard. It's right up here. And I'm going to select this color, and I'm going to use my marquee tool for this. I'm going to draw a square, and I'm going to hit Command Delete again, or excuse me, Option Delete again. And I'm going to just attempt to kind of have something in the background there to kind of get me through this. So again, not too bad. Hit Command T here, make it a little larger. Again, guys, you're mixing borders and things like that. All right, now that I have this and I have everything set, I can start working on my photo itself. This photo does not match immediately with this border. So I need to make the photo yellower or sepia tone. And to do that, I'm going to do some color correction. So I'm going to say color fix. There we go. And I'm going to go to image adjustments, and I'm going to do hue and saturation, and we'll see where that brings us. Now, hue and saturation deals with the color, the grayness of the color, and the brightness of the color. And what I can start to do is I usually turn my saturation down a little bit, and I can start to mess with the hue, which you can see changes the overall tonal range, which is good. I don't want too many neon kind of esque colors here. I'm also going to up the quality of the lightness, and what that will do is kind of blow out the image, which is kind of a neat effect in itself. So if you want to, you can hit colorize, and what that will do is kind of give it an overall effect. So I'm going to adjust this until, you know, to my liking here, and I usually blow it out quite a bit. On top of that, you can see now, what did I do? Well, I did this destructively. So we're going to go back, and I want you guys to do this non-destructively. So I'm going to do layer adjustment layer hue and saturation. And this is a prime example of ways to go back. I'm going to check use previous layer as clipping mask. I'm going to hit the colorize button and do the same results here. And now, if I mess up, I can just double click and I can go back and work with it. That is the advantage of this. I'm going to also click on my layer again and go to adjustment layer, and I'm going to hit it with, I don't know, let's hit it with some curves maybe. We're going to mess with the brightness. And I'm going to adjust some of the areas in here. So I want the sky to be kind of blown out and bright. These old photos really, you know, they got to withstand the test of time, but sometimes they get like a little flattened in saturation and color, or overly dark. Sometimes you'll see that too. But I'm kind of matching the paper. All right, so I have that. Now, I'm looking at this, and I could make this look wrinkled, and I'm going to go see if I can't find a paper texture. So I'm going to type paper texture. And I'm going to go into here and just see what I get. I really like this one. It's kind of really uber messy, but let's see what we can get. So I'm going to copy this image, and I'm going to paste this in my scene. You can see it went right underneath the adjustment layer, so it kind of withheld everything. So I like that, but I want to put this on the very top of everything. And I'm going to show you why here. Alright. And I have it as a, came in as a clipping mask here, which is kind of something I do not want right now, so I'll do it like this. And I'm going to call this paper texture. Cool. Okay, I have the paper texture and I need to blend it. Now, turning the opacity down will not really do it. I'm going to use that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess with these blending modes. And that kind of allows us to incorporate some of the color. Now, I'm going to go through them all, and I have to find which one's best for me. Now, anytime I use these blending modes, I go through pretty much all of them until I find the one I like. And then, if you're really, really into it, you can go down to this little FX button and go to the blending mode blending options. Here you can find the opacity of your layer. You can adjust the amount that you see of your blend. And in some cases, like there, it's really not going to work. But you have a lot of different options. You can take the color out just in blue. You can take the colors out everywhere else. I'm fine with it as it is, so I'm going to not use that, and I'm going to just turn my opacity down a little bit here. So this gives us a start. One of the big things I see now, though, is that line. It's so harsh on the actual image, so I'm going to have to deal with that eventually, and I know that's coming. And I also have a harsh line where my border was that I'm going to have to deal with. So I'm not out of the woods yet. All right, let's see what else we can do, though. Alrighty. So I have my image now, and let's look at some of our brushes here. I'm going to go ahead to install these. I'm going to just double-click on the brushes. And this is the great thing about Photoshop is as I do that, it actually should, if I've done it right, load all these brushes inside of my piece. So for instance, one of the brushes was a crack brush, and we can call this crack. Let's see what we get. Now it's maybe going to make this look a little too photoshopped, so I got to be careful, but we'll take a crack here at it. Bad joke. And not too bad. Actually, that's a pretty cool brush. I do like that. It's not as cheesy as I thought. Now at any point I can paint this in black or paint this in gray and deal with my blending modes here and my opacity and kind of get a neat effect off of that. But I actually really dug it using that whitish color that I just had. So, not bad at all. Alright. So, undoing too many layers here. I'll call it a crack. We'll have some of that in there. And I'm going to go and sample some of the colors here. Maybe get something a little lighter. Alright. Let's see. What other ones do we have? That doesn't look like a crack so much. It's so big. You gotta watch out there. So we'll have to keep in mind, these brushes and how we use them and maybe how little we use them. So very cool. Don't forget when you guys are using your brushes, use your brush editor and rotate the brush. This is going to give you a less default look. Also changing the scale of your brush is immensely going to help. So I would go in here and kind of do that. Alright, so those don't look too bad. I'm really happy with those. I can play with my blending modes like I told you guys. But overall, I'm kind of happy with it is on normal. So that's one thing I can do. I can look at my other brushes. I have these grunge settings. Now, these are huge brushes, okay? You'll see when they come in. And these are meant to be corner brushes. So for instance, if I paint with that, now that edge I had there on my mask kind of goes away. So I'm going to do edge. And the edge I mean is, you guys can see it, is this one. It's the one like right at the top of this brush. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot that there. I'm also going to utilize this brush. I'm going to flip it and see what it looks like up there. Not too bad. Maybe I'll use another one so it doesn't look so uniform. And these brushes are awesome. A lot of people work really hard on making these brushes for our own personal use. And I'm losing my cursor here, guys. There we go. Use my bracket key to shoot this down. Kind of corrode it there a little bit. Not too bad. And I have a lot of options with this, which is really kind of cool. And then maybe one more brush. Let's see if I can find a left corner brush. And that one's kind of small. That's good. Coming in, pulling it in. And again, I'm just kind of dealing with some of these edges. There we go. So now we're getting kind of that old, like, holy crap, this paper is pretty beat up look. And again, we can move my paper on top of this at any time and kind of deal with the paper as a whole, rather than keeping it, again, down here where it may not look as well. So again, you can still see my edges here. What I can do to get rid of those, I can do a few things. One, I can go into my mask, and what I would do is probably not use this brush, but it may not be a bad idea. And I can paint away or hide some of the areas there in my brush. Even painting with a grayer brush, so if we pick gray, it's going to be subtly transparent. We'll kind of start to get stuff away in there. So again, just a way to kind of push that away. Alright guys, so we're getting very close here. I'm looking at some of my layers, my layer masks. I'm going to kind of change out of some of these brushes and go back to some more traditionals. Zoom out here. I can add, again, a layer on some of my other things, like this. If I want to take that away, I can add an 8-layer mask. I'm okay without it, so I'm going to hit delete. And let's see what we get here. Let's reset our brushes. And it gets tricky from time to time. Just kind of understanding where to put what and, how things are blending and all that kind of stuff. But, the more you guys do this, the more you're going to find your shortcuts and, your patterns in your layers here. You can see I just kind of figured out what order I needed. That's a little too harsh to kind of get rid of some stuff. So I can go in here and kind of get rid of some of these sharp corners and get rid of some of the sharp corners back here. And just, kind of work those, push those back as I can. All right. So again, we're getting to a point that it's not too bad. We worked on some of our adjustment layers. We've dealt with some of the color and the highlights and all that really cool stuff. But now let's go ahead and take it to the next level. So I'm going to go ahead and group all of these and pull them down to the group, and I'll name them work. And I'm going to do a mega flatten. That's Command-Alt-Shift-E. And what that will do is create a flattened, I'll call it mega flattened image. Alright, now the mega flattened image is kind of cool because what it will do is allow us to have a fresh start. And this fresh start is going to really let us do some cool things. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to lock my work layer, turn the eyeball off. Let's go ahead and cut some of this up, like I did in class. So for this little demo, I'm going to use these tear brushes. And these are really, really nice. Now, I have a different kind of set on my computer for class, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the mega flatten twice. So let's see. We'll call this left. We'll call this right. And I'm going to go back and find some more paper. And what I want is just a subtle paper texture this time. And I could even use that again. Not too sure which one I want here. Let me find something else just to show you guys. And we'll go to that. That's a huge image. It's going to take a second to download. So I'm going to go with this. And I'm going to utilize this kind of cardboardy paper texture to do some cool stuff. So right click, I'm going to copy it. It's going to be way bigger than my composition. I'm going to paste this in here. As you can see, it's absolutely huge. That's okay. Scale it down. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and just position it underneath my area. And I'm going to call this background paper. Alright, because guys, what we're going to do is tear this paper. And when you tear paper, it's not just so cut and dry. It frays, it has different areas to it. So we're going to utilize masks, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the right mask here, and I'm going to go and chop off about, I'd say, I'll turn off this one for the left. I'd say about the whole right side. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this. And let's see, I want to go up and down with this one. Yeah, that looks good. And cut off a good chunk there. All right, now we're going to turn off our paper too so we can do something kind of cool here. So with that, I need to utilize these other layers because obviously if I turn this on, this does not look real at this point. So I'm going to utilize this mask, and the first thing I'm going to do is hold down Control on a PC or Command on a Mac and click it. And when I click this, I'm going to go to my background and I'm going to apply a mask there as well. Now all that's done is kind of essentially make the same shape on top of each other. Then I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to go to this one and apply the same exact mask, and you'll see why in a second. So I have 3 of the same masks. Now here's a little trick. First, I'm going to grab my paper, and I'm going to use my arrow keys or my move tool, and I'm going to use my left and right arrow keys, and I'm going to move the paper over a little bit. Also going to kind of adjust it up and down. At that point, I may need to go and get my brush, and I may need to find a harder brush and erase some of this excess area. And if I zoom in, you guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm creating the illusion of torn paper. All right? And that really gives me kind of a neat effect. Now, I know some people who try to like darken this or multiply all these or kind of blend these together. You don't need to do all that. You can just kind of keep it pretty straightforward. Again, dealing with your masks, dealing with your masks here is the important part. So we can erase some of this. And we're good in that one. Maybe I'll erase some of this stuff too. All right. Cool. All right, so really sloppy mask, but a cool result. Now what we have, though, is this. So we have this one, and, you know, there's really nothing special about it, but what I really want to do is invert this. So I'm going to highlight this and do Image Adjustments Invert, or Command-I. So I'm going to highlight my mask and hit Command-I, and that inverts it. Now, at this point, this is pretty ugly, okay? We have a lot of stuff hanging on this and hiding from our masks. So I'm going to have to go back and kind of make sure I don't paint on any of my masks before I hit Command-I. And now we can kind of look what we have. So we have this, which essentially is the ripped paper from that. All right? So what I need to do now is I need to take that using my move tool, and I need to kind of move it away. Now I'm going to hit Command-T, and I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to kind of just place this paper somewhere else. And you can see I have areas where I may still need to mask. So I can erase those areas. Kind of cut and dry at this point. And I'm getting kind of something pretty cool. Well, if I end up overlapping this, I want to do one more thing. I want to make a drop shadow. So I'm going to go to Effects, Drop Shadow, and this is going to bring up our layer style. Now, I don't want my drop shadow to be black. I want it to actually be a darker version of the paper beneath it. So I'm going to be very careful in selecting the drop shadow here. And I'm going to go and just give it a subtle dark feel here. There we go. So I'm going to keep it similar to the paper color. I can go ahead and add distance to it. I don't want to do this because that makes no sense. But I want to drag it out a little bit and maybe make it a little larger in size. Now you guys will see immediately that you get some really weird results. Don't worry about that. You know, if you get something you don't like, go in and erase it with your tool, with your layer mask. All right? And now we have something kind of cool. We have something that is pretty old looking. We could do some more work on it, but you can see in a really fast time we can do a lot of amazing stuff. So hopefully this has helped clear up some issues on your paper tearing old to new switcheroo project, and I hope to really see some creative results. Now the challenge I ask you guys is to push it further than what you see I've done here. Don't just repeat what I've done, but take these techniques and see what you can do creatively.